After playing through a bit of God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, I realized there was far more story than Santa Monica first led us to believe, as well as fighting through Valhalla in more of a roguelike style of gameplay, while sticking to the combat style of Ragnarok. While there is still permanent progression, like in the other God of War games, there is temporary progression, as we gain rewards for every dungeon we complete. On our first time visiting Valhalla, we pry its gates open, and Kratos is pulled through the light. We fight some basic enemies without our shield and slowly losing health, as though Valhalla is weakening us. After we're done fighting the enemies, we open a legendary chest which gives us an upgrade to one of our weapons. We then move on to the next section where we fight some more basic enemies. Most people will die in this section, and we wake up to see Freya and some Valkyries around us. Here we are given some exposition and some information on how Valhalla works. We also get to select our rage and shield type that we will use on our journey through Valhalla. We will also later be given the ability to choose a relic type. Before we get into the tips and tricks for God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, I ask that you like and subscribe, as it helps me out a lot. The first thing I recommend you to do is open the Goals tab and look at some quests. The Mastery quests are an excellent way to get some rewards that will help you get started. When you return to the shore from Valhalla, you'll notice a red obelisk that you can use to upgrade your stats. The first stats I recommend you upgrading are Health, Rage, and Strength, as they help increase the longevity of your runs. Later in the game, you will unlock the ability to upgrade secondary stats, such as Runic and Vitality. I believe Vitality is a good replacement to upgrading Health, as the cost to upgrade increases drastically later in the game. Before you start your next run, I recommend you choose your Shield and Rage, as I have two main suggestions for each. For shields, I recommend use the Dauntless Shield or the Guardian Shield, as they have great offensive options and are great for parrying. For Rage, I recommend you use Wrath or Legacy once you unlock it, as they are both great for offensive options. Moving into Valhalla, I recommend that you save your Fleeting Echoes for the higher realm shops, as they give far superior options than the lower realm shops do. The higher realm shops offer limited resources like the Weapon Crests and Resurrection Stones, which are very useful later in the game. Fleeting Echoes can also be used to unlock expensive chests in the higher realms, which are very useful and give very great rewards. I also recommend that you save your Rage for the higher realms and the Valhalla's Chosen, as they are difficult enemies that require lots of focus to defeat. Moving on to some of the weapon tips I have. Some strategies I find that work best are triangle attack bonuses on the Draupnir Spear and the Blades of Chaos. The Scorched Earth skill is top tier, and any weapon chest improving it is well worth it. Do note that the weapon you select in your first chest will determine which higher realm you get and will be able to upgrade it temporarily once you reach the higher realms. You will also be allowed to purchase a weapon crest of the type you selected, so long as you have enough Fleeting Echoes. For the axe, any glyph that improves the Pride of the Frost skill is a must. This skill is basically the only move that you should be doing with the axe, as it deals high freeze and high damage. Other than that, the axe is well rounded despite the fact that many of the skills are not particularly useful. For the blades, any glyph improving burn damage, Scorched Earth, or Chaotic Rampage are very important. Scorched Earth deals high fire status damage as well as very high health damage, and on top of that it can stagger some enemies, which can stop them from attacking altogether. This works incredibly well in conjunction with the Pride of the Frost, causing blades to do bonus damage due to the Vaporized Frost skill, as well as the axe dealing bonus damage due to Extinguished Flames. Chaotic Rampage is a very specialized skill, as there aren't many opportunities where it fits well, but when it does, it can shred many basic enemies with ease. It does have the downside of not staggering enemies, so it can be risky to use. For the Draupnir Spear, I recommend glyphs that improve Draupnir's Wail, the basic spear throw, the Spear Siphon, the one that deals bonus damage to frozen or burning enemies, and the Impaling Thrust one. I also recommend the glyph that improves the evasion damage. The spear is more of a weapon used by itself, unlike the blades and axe, where switching between the two can be very beneficial due to the Extinguish and Vaporize skills. The spear has two good combos, those being Rising Wind and the R2 combo, as well as having strong rage attacks. Any glyph that improves Draupnir's Wail is invaluable when using the spear. It deals massive damage on top of staggering enemies that it has pierced. If you get lucky enough to acquire the skill that deals bonus damage to frozen or burning enemies, then using the spear alongside the axe or blades becomes one of the most powerful combinations in the game. For general glyphs, I recommend you select Master of Arms or any perk that gives you bonus to triangle attacks or status afflicted enemies. Any perk that deals poison damage can be used very effectively, as it weakens enemies so they do less damage and you do more damage to them. If you have Momentous Shift for any weapon, I recommend you take the skill that improves melee damage during realm shifts, as it practically doubles the damage for a very short time. Once you advance far enough to battle Valhalla's Chosen, I recommend you use about a third of your rage that you saved from previous realms. Defeating basic enemies before fighting Valhalla's Chosen usually works out best for me, as when I'm battling the Chosen, I need to focus on parrying and dodging their attacks, as they deal massive damage. After defeating Valhalla's Chosen and opening the chest and traveling through the door, you immediately battle the mini-boss without traveling to a sanctuary first. The mini-bosses you face are generally pretty easy as long as you are good at parrying and are pretty good at dodging. There is usually only one enemy, and they deal pretty high damage, so timing your parries and using Scorched Earth are essential in these fights, as one mistake could cost you your entire run. After defeating the mini-bosses, there are two chests. One gives you a relic, and the other gives you health or rage restore, and a random stats perk. For relics, you can choose one that inflicts some sort of status on enemies, stuns enemies, or causes a realm shift. Note that relics have a very limited use, and I recommend you save them for the higher realms or the boss. Entering the higher realms, we notice the echo shop that I mentioned earlier. I recommend having at least 430 echoes at this point, as that is the cost required for the upgrade and for the crest. Here I'd like to make a spoiler warning for the rest of Valhalla, as there's some pretty major spoilers for the story here. If this is your first run through Valhalla, making it to this point, we'll see Kratos' old throne before being transported out of Valhalla. At this point in our next run, we see that Mimir has been replaced by Helios, and we enter the Greek world for the first time once again. We then travel up to the part of God of War 1 where we sacrifice the soldier in the cage to the gods. Kratos places Helios in the cage as he pushes it, and we fight some undead soldiers of Hades while we travel towards the sacrifice room. Just before we are about to enter the sacrifice chamber, our rage is replaced with the Legacy Rage ability, and we wield the legendary Blade of Olympus. Legacy Rage has 4 main attacks and 2 things to note. Unlike other rage abilities, Kratos can take damage while attacking. We can parry enemy attacks to gain a small amount of rage as a result of our damage-taking ability. The 4 main attacks are pretty basic. We have 1 light attack, 1 heavy attack, a ranged ability, and an attack that very quickly brings us to our enemy. All of these attacks can be charged up by holding the corresponding button. I believe that this is the best rage ability, as you can activate it even with very little rage, which can be useful if you have the Raging Aftermath glyph, as well as having the most damage potential for the most danger. Dodging and parrying are essential when using this rage, as we can't just turn off our brains and attack like with other rage abilities. We then enter the sacrifice chamber, and Kratos attempts to sacrifice Helios, but Helios is replaced with Mimir, and Kratos needs to break him out before he dies. Kratos pries the cage open that Mimir is in, but this seems to break reality as they fall through a seemingly endless void, and we see a black hole in the background. Sigrun swoops in to save us from our fate, despite the injuries she will sustain as a result. We return to the shore to see Sigrun badly injured, and we receive some story content that I won't go over. We've now unlocked the quest board, which will offer us labors where we can obtain some good rewards. We also unlocked the second upgrade obelisk, where we can use spirit seals to improve things such as the amount of echoes we can obtain, as well as mastery seals from pots. We can also purchase Divine Triumph using the weapon crest I discussed earlier. We also unlock new upgrades in the mastery seal obelisk, such as starting resurrection stones, critical health healing, and health from looting chests. All of the upgrades are key in succeeding in your runs through Valhalla. In our next run, instead of immediately sending to the Greek world, we have to battle 3 more Valhalla's Chosen in realm terror-like encounters, while facing a sort of time limit where the longer we take, the harder the enemies will become. We can also unlock some of the new Greek chests, which contain high tier perks and a different relic for high echo costs. Moving into the Echo Shop, we can see that there are larger health and rage restores, a resurrection stone, and other useful purchases that cost additional resources, such as weapon crests and spirit seals. When we next ascend, we return to the cage section, but we don't have to fight as many enemies until we reach the top and battle Cyclops. It's pretty easy if you use the Legacy Rage on it and dodge its attacks, as it's very similar to an ogre. Once entering the sacrifice room, Kratos sacrifices himself instead of Mimir or Helios, and then we are transported to a section where we meet Tyr. Tyr's generally a pretty easy fight once you figure out how to dodge and know his attacks. Some of his attacks are where he thrusts his spear 3 times before doing an unblockable attack, one where he thrusts his spear once and then does an unblockable attack, which leaves an area that will explode after a short time and deal high damage. He then has an attack where he throws his spear and leaves the same area as the previous attack before charging at you with his shield. He has some other attacks, but they are very basic and pretty easy to dodge or block. After defeating Tyr, our run is reset and we unlock some cosmetics. We also unlock the ability to use burdens, which can harm us for a short time before giving us a large reward. Every time you defeat Tyr, each run becomes increasingly more difficult, as there are more enemies and more realm tear encounters you have to complete in the Greek world. After defeating the Tyr the final time, we reach some story content and we get the ending. I won't spoil the ending for you in this video. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment as it really helps with this channel. Thanks for watching.